Welcome back to our discussion about Israel Apartheid Week. We're going to go now straight to you on the phone lines. Let's go to you, Dean, on line 8. Hello, Dean. You're on the line.
Hi, yes, I have two quick questions. One is, why are Jewish groups so quiet and do not protest or start a truthful Islamic Apartheid Month to replace the lie that is Israel Apartheid Week, which, by the way, is now a 2-week event and becoming a year-round curse? And secondly, why is it that some who identify themselves as Jews, such as independent Jewish voices, lead the way and even go as far as justifying another Holocaust by Ahmadinejad in Iran? Thank you very much.
Dean, thank you for calling in. Could one of you answer this very quickly? Yes, go on.
I can answer. Number two first, which is that Independent Voices does not lead the way. They're a marginalized group, and everybody does know that. Number one is that we are working very vigilantly on this issue from many different levels, many different areas, and many different organizations have been for a very, very long time. The truth of the matter is this situation could have been worse had we not started a while ago, but the road is long. There are many other complicating factors, like the issue of freedom of speech and so forth, that we can get into, depending on how long you want this answer to be.
Okay, that's fair enough. We're going to go now to you, Kathy, on line 7. Hello, Kathy. You're on the line.
Yes, hi, Christine.
Hi,
the last thing I ever wanted to do is come out on the side of the NDP. I'm a conservative, but I find myself on the side of the students because Rebecca said that she respects human rights, and she has to respect the human right of these students to come out and say what they want to say. That is their right. And in history, there was never any peace achieved by building walls or having checkpoints. Remember, the Soviets tried it, the checkpoints and the wall, and look where it ended up. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for calling in, Kathy. One of you need to address this. Go ahead, Dr. Hart.
Well, I think that one of the things that gets played out in Israel Apartheid Week is precisely what Kathy was alluding to, is the tension between freedom of speech on the one hand and ensuring student inclusivity, particularly Jewish student inclusivity, on the other hand. And that's a debate that we've been having at McMaster over the past several months with great intensity. No one is denying the other side their freedom of expression, their freedom of speech. What we do wonder about is when that freedom of speech, which at many times becomes an abuse of freedom of speech, ends up as an attack on a particular group on our campus, and in this instance the Jewish students and Jewish faculty are the brunt of it, that no longer becomes a healthy way to create bridges towards greater understanding, to raise the level of the discourse from the demonizing to the academic, which is what a university milieu should be all about.
Okay, I'm going to ask a point-blank question here. Would you say that Israel Apartheid Week is inciting violence and hatred toward Jewish groups? Would you say that?
Thankfully, with few exceptions, we haven't yet reached the point of actual violence, but certainly the incitement is there. And we've already seen instances, particularly at York University, over the past year, where we've come pretty close to a more than just tense situation, a dangerous and violent situation. And that's what we're all trying desperately to avoid by whichever way we can. And that's why we find it so incongruous that on the one hand, we're allowing people to speak. On the other hand, we feel that this freedom of speech is being exploited as a way of attacking other groups on campus.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Which creates a very toxic environment.
On the freedom of speech issue, I have to add one very important thing, which Dr. Hart, I don't know if you're aware of, which is last week at York University, there was supposed to have been a telecast featuring Daniel Pipes. Last Monday, York University shut that down. So when it comes to Jewish students, Jewish groups' point of view, and their own freedom of expression, that gets shut down by a university. And our belief is it gets shut down because the university is not afraid of the reaction from the Jewish students. There is clear and concise intimidation that is happening on the other side. Okay. And violence, I believe, is an issue. And the question is, what are we waiting for until somebody gets stabbed?
Okay, I'm going to go to Ilya on line 4, a York University student. Hello, Ilya, you're on the line.
Yeah, hi there. I just have two quick comments. The first one is actually, like you said, I am a York University student, and over the past 3 years, with all the rallies that I've been to, none of them actually, encouraged peace and encouraged dialogue. it was mostly just Israel bashing and just recruiting students to think that way.
Okay, Ilya, thank you for calling in with that. I'll tell you right off a concern that I've had, because I personally have gotten emails from students and forwards from other people coming from students from York University that talked about the threat of violence there. I actually know one man who was a very prominent speaker at York University and had to be escorted by security out a back door for his own safety. Now, this is where it becomes an issue of concern. Now, I'm going to go back to Joel French. He's our guest out in Edmonton, and once again, he's the president of the Palestine Solidarity Network, and just as important, president of the University of Alberta campus, NDP. Now, the question I have for Joel is regarding the NDP. Once again, an article coming out saying that this issue about the Middle East is dividing NDPers on that. Hezbollah, for example, in a 2006 convention, was deemed a legitimate party. I'd like to know where you stand on that. Joel, how do you feel about this?
I mean, well, I wasn't invited on here to be a guest representing the NDP. So that's not really what I want to focus on, nor was I at the 2006 convention. Obviously, there are different views across the political spectrum on what solutions should be for the Israel-Palestine conflict. One thing that I do want to talk about was the point that somebody mentioned right before the break on the dehumanization, concern about the dehumanization of the Israeli people. And I think if you want to talk about dehumanization, we do need to look at, we talked a little bit about what's going on in Gaza, where Hamas is the leadership. And I mean, leadership aside, what we're concerned about is the civilian population that is really who has been victimized. 80% of civilians in Gaza are dependent on international food aid in order to survive. 80% of that population is unemployed, and 50% of that population is under the age of 16. So if you want to look at dehumanized, think of these children, millions of children that are being starved, simply as collective punishment for the, yes, there are problems with the leadership. I'm not a supporter of Hamas. I mean, I'm not Palestinian, so I don't have a choice to support a Palestinian party, even if I wanted to. But I think the tactics used by Hamas, targeting civilians, no, they're not justified. But I think it has to be taken in context. This is a population that is really without hope. They're reliant on international food aid, and to be honest, that food aid is not getting in because, excuse me, since June 2007, there's been a blockade on the territories in Gaza. Yes, it's said that it's justified because of these rockets, but
Joel,
rockets don't justify
Joel, I'll stop
starving
you for a second here because I'd like to hear your reply to what I'm going to ask you next. No doubt.